All right, this is starting to get a little bit silly. So this tax credit thing seems to be like a booster shot instead of a big letdown. Now that we're into the apocalyptic phase of no tax credit, is not as much of a hellscape as everyone was making it out to be. In fact, quite the opposite. Let's go ahead and get into it. Many bits of good news have been filtering in after the tax credit was removed, and one of which was the numbers for Q3 sales. The outstanding number, in my opinion, is the fact that the Cadillac brand has reached 40% pure EVs in Q3 2025. Who would have thunk? And the thing about this is that it's speculated brands that are luxury brands are going to be insulated from the loss of the tax credit with the decreased EV sales because their cars by and large weren't qualifying for EV tax credits anyway. So no harm, no foul, and it was just going to continue. Now I do think that Cadillac is going to dip off their precipice 40%, and Jim Farley, from the CEO of Ford, was speculating somewhere around 5% pure EV sales for Q4 2025, and that was basically my prediction also. We would come down from the high 9% down to about 5 for Q4, and then we'd start to ramp back up from there in a quasi Germany loss of subsidy repeat event. But that doesn't seem to be what is actually panning out in reality. So I'll get to the other brands in a second. Let's just stick with the Cadillac brand. I personally think what's going to happen with them is they are not going to go to 5%. I think what they're going to do is they're going to go from like 40% down to like 30%. And, there's a lot of hype in the news cycles now. So a lot of people were buying EVs that weren't before in the overall sales funnel. There were more people being attracted. So I do think that is going to come down somewhat, but it's not going to 5%. I think Cadillac is going to remain at a respectable level, over 25% pure EV sale, and likely when the tally is done, it was supposed to be 1 out of every 3 Cadillacs in 2025 was going to be a pure EV, and now I think it's going to be closer to, I don't know, not quite half and not a third, but somewhere in between. So I'm not quite sure what that number is, but let's just say 35%, 38%, something like that, of all the Cadillacs sold in 2025 are going to be pure battery electric. That alone is a titanic or a seismic shift in the American auto industry. That is a tectonic altering of the landscape, that a brand that is got such legacy as Cadillac is now approaching 1 out of every 2 cars that they sell being full battery electric. And that alone is really saying something. But let's get to some of the other bits of news that has come out. Let's stick with General Motors here for just a second. This is their investor relations slide deck for Q3. And this is slide number 4, referring to EVs specifically. We have 66,501, which is up 107% year-on-year growth. That is a staggering amount of increase. So we are not talking about a mild uptick or a bump. We're talking about more than double the amount of EVs that are coming out. And there's more to this story, which I'm going to get to in just a second. But let's just stick with the Q3 earnings numbers. Ford is also reporting a record quarter for their electric vehicles in Q3, similar to General Motors, not quite to the same extent, but still very respectable for a company that's rolling up into third place. And really, people compare Ford to Chevy and it outpaces them, but if you compare GM to Ford, then GM supersedes. But I think it's semantics at this point. Basically, the point is everyone's selling more electric vehicles. Tesla themselves, which was suffering from brand erosion, is now seeing a massive rebound with 7% increase in sales. And it's been quite a few moons on the calendar before Tesla has seen an actual bump in sales occur. So we're in a momentum cycle where electric vehicles are selling fast and they're increasing in sales. Okay, so What that means is the tax credit loss was a booster shot for electric vehicle adoption, and now we're in the after effects or the hangover or whatever you want to call. And initially, the thought, Jim Farley, I think, was kind of echoing sentiment that was commonly held that around 5% in Q4. But I'm very rapidly adjusting my perspective on what those numbers will be because, as I said, Tesla increased 7% year on year with their sales. And as we all know, just now they released a lower cost car. The problem is that this tax credit being removed was telegraphed so far in advance that all the automakers were able to calibrate a response because they're in the business of making money. They don't want to see their sales drop off a cliff. So they've been sitting there in their boardrooms and focus groups saying, what can we do? What's the plan? How can we keep the inertia moving forward in order to ensure that these cars that are being made, and we're making a profit on, continue to be sold? And John McElroy of Autoline Daily famously says that every car that is made is sold eventually. So really the question is, how many cars are going to be produced? And we have seen curtailing of shifts for the upcoming Chevrolet Bolt being advertised, and I actually question the sincerity of advertising that you're decreasing shifts, because I actually think that's going to be that was a purposeful injection into discourse, saying that they were going to be curtailing a shift at the Kansas City stamping plant that makes the Chevrolet Bolt, because I think it's going to be so successful that when they add that shift back, it'll be so newsworthy that it will just help propel interest in the new badged Chevrolet Bolt even more. So that's my personal opinion. I think it was a rope-a-dope. Regardless, time will tell about that. But the automakers had a chance to actually look at what was going to be the new normal once the tax credit was removed. And if we roll the clock back, electric vehicles were selling just fine prior to the tax credit being available. And it stands to reason that electric vehicles are going to do just fine once it's removed after there's a certain amount of readjustment. But I think these automakers have done such a good job of calibrating what the landscape is going to look like after the removal of the tax credit. It seems like headline after headline after headline. First, we have Hyundai saying that they're going to just like lop a certain amount off the cost of Ioniq 5s. Then we're hearing that Tesla is immediately starting to make available lower cost Model 3s and Model Ys, skinny down Model 3s and Model Ys. We're hearing, we don't know the specifics, but we're hearing that the Chevrolet Bolt will start to be produced out of Kansas City before year's end. And that's said to be sub 30,000, is speculated, sub 30,000. And when you don't have to do oil changes and the fuel for your vehicle or the electricity that propels your vehicle costs less than gasoline, and it doesn't break down as much, these things really start selling themselves as better mousetraps. So I'm actually highly impressed with the automotive industry's response to the loss of the $7,500 federal tax credit in the United States, with the offers that are being made, the new models that are in short succession getting released immediately after. It's like this whole thing was scripted, and the incredible boom that occurred in the electric vehicle industry just prior to the loss of the $7,500 tax credit. So it's like there's inertia. And then all of a sudden all these headlines are coming out saying, hey, don't worry about the loss of the $7,500 tax credit. We got you. We got lower price models. We're doing discounts on our cars. Keep coming in and buying your electric cars if that's what you want to do. And so I don't think what we're looking at is a stifling effect to the degree that was anticipated prior to of dipping down to 5%. I don't know what the number is, but I would not be surprised if Q4 2025 electric vehicle sales is at about 8% of total electric or total cars sold in the United States. So this is speculation on my part, obviously, but what we do have hard numbers is that Q3 was a record quarter for electric vehicles in the United States. Thank you very much for watching.